And I feel as if I am approaching every day or living by those intentions every day. And I'm grateful for that. And it is drawing me further and further away from the person I was yesterday and 3 years ago. And there's a concept of becoming better, 1% better every day. And in a year, you'll be unrecognizable. I truly think I'm becoming 1% better. And it's something that I'm living by.
Welcome in to Menfolk Journeys, the podcast of great conversations with men. I'm your host, Chris Foster, and we're going to explore how we wear this beautiful and confusing mantle of manhood in the 21st century. Look, I get it. In public life, a lot of men are knuckleheads. But in private life, we can be thoughtful and we can be reflective if we have the right conversation, if we feel comfortable talking about our story. And we all have a great story to tell. And we can all learn from those stories. We can learn about who we've been, who we are, and who we want to be. And that's why we're going to have this conversation, so we can learn from other men just like us. And this conversation is with my friend William. William is a young man. He's the youngest guest we've had. And you could say he's just getting started on his adulthood, but that doesn't mean he's getting started on his life. He's lived a lot already at 24. He's learned a lot already at 24. And the question he's having now is, how can he take what he's learned so far and apply it to his life now to build for the future? It's a wonderful conversation with a bright young man. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome in to Menfolk Journeys. William Drake, welcome in.
Hello, Chris. It's an honor and a privilege to be joining you today. I'm here live from New York City. I have an apartment with 3 roommates in the heart of Soho, and I'm just entering my 24th year of of living on this planet. I grew up in Maine originally and moved to New York about 2 years ago.
Fantastic. I love that. I love that story that at 24 in New York and, starting off. And I guess the first thing that I want to start off with is just that, right? You're a young man who's independent and kind of moving forward in life. Of course, New York City offers unlimited social opportunities, experiences. There's kind of like this cliche of being single in the city, right? I have this image of William Drake on his New York City rooftop, checking everything out and just living in the city. Do you think like this is a special time in your life, like while you're living it?
One of the most important things I think I do in my life is make time for awe. And this period of my life, I've never experienced so much awe ever. I think that my life has been on the up for as long as I can remember, and I'm developing, and I'm a consistent learner. And my eyes are always very wide open, if you can understand what I mean there.
Mm-hmm.
And so this time in my life, I know is absolutely crucial, and I literally have not stopped looking around me and realizing how special this place and this time of my life is. So it's a good question, and something that I think about every single day is how lucky I am and how amazing the opportunity is to have the ability to be an independent young man away from the family that raised me so well, and have this opportunity to forge my own path in diligently pursuing the start of that story that I'll eventually develop as I move through my independent life.
As you move through, right, you're writing the story as you're living it. And I am so impressed and William, I'm grateful that you are recognizing and experiencing awe, that you are seeing that, there are certain times in lives which are transformative and very material in shaping who we are, right? And the fact that I believe that you recognize like this is one of those moments, right? This beginning of young adulthood, but you're in the some people would say the greatest city in the world. It's definitely one of the, I don't know, when you look at across the sweep of time, um, 2025 New York City is an unbelievably special, concentrated place of intelligence and creativity and energy and new ideas and the idea of the combination of people living together is nowhere like it in the world, and you're in there, right? Which I love. So, a question for you about it, right? So you grew up in a small town in Maine, went to school, now in New York City. What was the most surprising part of the transition to New York City?
I would say that it was really surprising to me how effortful everything must be.
Hmm.
And or effortful is I think still relevant, but also conscious. I think that and I've been surprised by the fact that everything that you accomplish here is a result of conscious effort and consistency towards that, not so much a goal, but that intent.
Hmm.
So you have to be very intentional about everything. I think throughout my life, growing up, I've been a diligent learner, but not always focusing it in one specific area like I have after moving here. When I first moved here, I moved here without a job. I moved here without an apartment.
Love it.
I I stayed with my godparents. I had literally one singular dollar in my pocket. I
Nice.
had maybe a few more dollars in the lining, but it was literally a spur of the moment opportunity that I seized. And from
Hmm.
that point on, everything is required attention. Nothing just falls in your lap.
That's
And
interesting. I want to pause and probe a little bit on that because, a lot of people might from the outside see, oh, people kind of skate through life or, just kind of quote unquote was easy or kind of landed. But that's really interesting that you recognize uh, uh, in an internal way and recognize also initially that there is real conscious effort needed to
Mhm.
move your life forward in New York in your environment there. But that's effort that doesn't happen once. It's almost every day, all day long.
It's consistent small efforts. And I will elaborate by saying that the reason why this place is draw or has drawn me and has drawn others, I believe, is because with that conscious effort, things do happen spontaneously that you could never imagine happening somewhere else. And because but you're only able to capture them similar to like I listened to one of your past podcasts about and you talked a lot about surfing and I'm also a pretty avid surfer. It's putting yourself in the right place in relation to that wave in order to allow the momentum of the city around you and the opportunities that are always swirling around you in this city to pick you up and bring you along. So I guess what I mean is it takes so much intentional effort to put yourself in that perfect position or that good enough position to
Uh-huh.
have potentially the ride of your lifetime. Um,
That is excellent. I love that metaphor. I think that I'm not sure if this is it, but it's pretty close. That the definition of serendipity is the preparation with the
mm,
opportunity, and that
yes.
right? And that the idea of preparing all the time for not knowing quite what's next, but still preparing yourself to be ready and to be prepared for an opportunity that happens. And I like your idea that New York City, for the right folks who have the intention and are, have the ability and or are put in a position to do so. New York City offers almost endless opportunity and limitless opportunity.
And I think you summarized it well.
Well, thank you. So you're living with three roommates now, and I think that you're living in that shared environment. How's that going?
I think that it's very manageable. I was very lucky to know some of my roommates before moving in. I grew up with one of them since I was in kindergarten
Nice.
and have played all kinds of sports with him through high school. We went to different colleges, but have come back together in the city. It's inspirational because each of them is working very hard in their own unique way.
Mm-hmm.
It's taught me a lot about my strengths and my weaknesses, how I am working incredibly hard and I'm accomplishing completely different things to what each of them are, where the work ethic is similar and the pursuit of a very tangible outcome is similar, but we're each falling into, and this is something I found really interesting about being an adult, where now we can rely on our strengths and we're not getting the same breadth of stimulus that you would in like a classroom where we aren't forced to take the math class if we're
Mm-hmm.
very or if we're adept at kind of interpersonal communication or at putting together Excel models or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's taught me a lot about what is possible from different people with different skill sets, as long as they have a very good work ethic and are intentional about bringing back to intent about their actions and what they want in their life.
Yeah,
So,
and well, that's great that also you guys can be role models together and kind of help each other, inspire each other, right, as models of how to move forward. And I want to touch on that a little bit later. But you mentioned that you were an athlete, and then you played sports, and you mentioned also in your um, in your uh, in your form,
mhm,
the conversation guide, that you were a varsity athlete. And there's something about, especially at a collegiate level, and Division 1, where there's dedication, there's teamwork and persistence. There's all this work that goes in every single moment of every day that moves you towards perhaps fulfilling an uncertain goal. Like, you never do know if you, how well you will perform when the moment comes, but you prepare for it. In what ways do you think that experience of committing to that sport prepared you for entering young adulthood, like you mentioned, with intention?
mhm. I love that you ended it with intention because that's where I will pick it up. I'm not a huge believer in a kind of exact goal to be met or failed against.
Mm-hmm.
I think that rowing is the sport that I committed to in college at the Division 1 level. It is very much you can do literally the most you can possibly do in over a given 1 year span, a given 4 year span, a given 10 year span. And you can lose against somebody who has done the exact same thing or less over that same amount of time. And there is no, if you are measuring your success against a goal or against something tangible, which is like win or lose, I know the mentality was prevalent throughout rowing that you're either first or you're last. Um, it's it's truly like the journey is far more important than the goal. And if you show up intentionally at every practice and put the work in, you are going to learn lessons. For example, like the lesson that consistency will win the day
Mm-hmm.
one almost 100% of the time. There are external factors that you can't control, maybe in specifically rowing, how tall you are, how strong you are, the the genetics that you've been born with, or the
Right.
circumstances of how you were trained in high school or before. And that's the same. Life is dynamic. We're all given certain cards, and we have to play with them, which I kind of guess touches back on how I described living with roommates, where everybody has been dealt a different hand,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody needs to figure out that superpower that they possess. I truly believe that everybody possesses some exceptional quality about them that differentiates them from the world around them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sport and discomfort and persistence shows you where those strengths lie. I was also a psychology major, and it is remarkable learning about the human brain and the tendency to steer away from friction, which I and towards comfort,
Right.
which will show you the way as long as you keep challenging yourself and listening to the feedback that your body and that the world around you gives you, and putting yourself in situations where you learn a lot about yourself
Mm-hmm.
through discomfort and
Through
through
discomfort. Yeah.
yeah
Yeah.
through times in your life where maybe you got some terrible feedback, or somebody has even given you vague and hurtful feedback. You are able to analyze yourself and analyze your actions after it, and you're going to be able to understand by listening and being aware what you're good at and what you need to improve at. But most importantly, in my opinion, as a young adult, where you can really anchor your day-to-day actions to better enable you for success in the future. So like everything that I think about is from the lens of how am I going to best set myself up for success later down the line, because nothing has happened yet and I need to get somewhere eventually.
Well, it's so funny. A couple of things. That was, first of all, that was excellent. And I want to unpack a couple of phrases that you
Hmm.
said. One was the idea of seeking discomfort versus, wallowing in comfort. So um, one guy that I really like listening to is Mike Tomlin. He's the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of people have different opinions about him. I think he's terrific. But he said that he seeks discomfort. He looks
Absolutely.
for a discomfortable place that he can go to instead of wallowing in what feels good, because it's where he can see, where he can be uncomfortable is where he can be tested and learn about himself. Um, the other thing that I thought was interesting, kind of, and unpack what you said, was this idea that you haven't done anything yet, which is an interesting thing because it says that you're kind of looking at your future and that there's a you're at the first part of this journey, right? But there actually has been a pretty big journey. You actually have done a lot. It's just you've lived as long as you've lived, comparatively,
Yes.
not as much as other people, but comparatively longer than others, right? And so at this 24 years old, you have done a lot actually to put you at your place here. Hopefully, you'll be live to be 130, 140, what this generation might. So you still have a long way to go. And I want to ask about this now, because it's an interesting time in the 2020s. There's been a lot of data about the challenges that young men are experiencing, right? So just from a data side, there's increased suicide rates, declining income, minority of college graduations, and et cetera. There's a lot more data that's out there that I'm not going to cover, but I'm curious because you're in an environment with three other guys, and you're all kind of striving, and you're moving along. It seems like the cohort you're with is thriving. Are you having conversations about some of these other data points and other areas that, when they talk about the challenge and the struggles that young men are having?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
We are, I don't always have them with my immediate roommates, but I will start this by saying I am, and I think of myself as incredibly well adjusted with a fantastic support system. And I think support system is kind of the key to where this discussion is going to go. And for me, when I think of these data points and when I read about causes for them and relate them back to my own life, which is brimming with opportunity and relationships and friendships, and I look at where the kind of fork in the road could have been
Hmm.
to go down either path, I truly believe that it was through positive male mentorship
Hmm.
from older adults. I try, like, I will even reach out. I've reached out to the YMCA's in the area and offered to volunteer and coach in some way, whether it be some sport or teach rowing to the youth of the city, even in any capacity, be able to instill values and guide gently by example youth in the area. I haven't heard back from one email.
Oh,
Um,
that's too
I think
bad
it,
because they need the help. They said that for big brothers and big sisters that there's a real lack of big brothers, that it's just a
yeah,
cavity. I really love that you mentioned specifically kind of a model of manhood and a positive model of manhood that really helped you on your way. Can you talk more about that? Because I think that those are such important aspects in the development of a young man.
absolutely. One, the superpower was that I was interested in each of these activities. They were pretty much exclusively sports.
Mm-hmm.
I was a jazz musician for a little while, and my band teacher was a man as well. I think that that's number one. I was genuinely interested in the things that I was doing. Number
Yeah.
two, there was an abundance both in the number and in the diversity of people that were in my life, specifically male role models.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the diversity of just the fact that they were different people, and then the different activities that they were teaching and the different values that they held close or core to their teaching style helped create a diverse learning experience, specifically from like a one generation to the next
Yeah.
kind of way.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you reference models that were both coaches in a musician standpoint, coaches in a
Yes,
sports standpoint, um, and that the coach model is such a good one because that coach can help teach that younger person the craft of the activity, almost like an apprentice, right? A shoe, like the shoe cobbler, and he's got an apprentice, and the apprentice is 11 years old, and he's teaching him how to sew shoes, and but in the course of actually showing and teaching that young child the craft, there's also these life lessons that are imparted informally or formally. There's also an opportunity for that young boy to look at the older man to say how he lives, right? He does this craft really well, and he knows this craft really well, and he's helping me be better at this craft. Ergo, I really trust this person, and I want to learn more about him and how he got to where he is and who he is. Um, so I think it's interesting that you saw these models and they were real coaches. So the jazz musician, I'm curious about because I know very little. I know enough about the jazz music world to ask questions. So my daughter was a singer in the jazz community, and their band went to essentially Ellington, which is the big high school jazz thing, and with Wynton Marsalis and stuff. And so she was really in it. And jazz is something where there's a formality, but there's also exposition, there's also creativity, but there's also this ruthlessness about perfecting and getting better. So I guess the question that I have is, A, what instrument did you play? And then B, who was your teacher like and what did you learn from him?
Good question. And they say that once you're in jazz, you can tell what instrument somebody played just by knowing them. And my instrument and who I am is very much the trombone.
Nice.
I I was as far from the perfection side of jazz as you could possibly be. And the trombone is very much, you're almost there. Kind of each position is not exact in the way that the press of a like a saxophone key or a trumpet valve would be. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of, you're loose and you can flow your notes together, you can slur them, you can really give it a lot of emotion. And it's funny we're talking about this because I didn't continue in jazz to higher levels. We competed as a middle school
Mm-hmm.
and won our state championship twice in a row. We were
Wow.
fantastic for our level. And our teacher was very, I would say his one value was consistency and being attentive while you were working on something.
Hmm.
So while we were in the classroom, you were laser focused, and it was the environment that he cultivated, and it served me well throughout the entirety of the rest of my life because I became a great learner because my default and my habit, it's incredible how much of our day is devoted to habits that are built over a lifetime. That's what I've
Mm-hmm.
come to learn about myself. It's it's that I now have this uncanny ability to really be present in the moment that I'm learning something or that I'm having to execute on something. And it's allowed me to be a swift learner in
Hmm.
so many other areas of my life. And I've learned things over and over and over again, and I've developed the skill of learning.
Right.
And early along the process of developing that skill was this jazz band that I was a part of. And so I could definitely attribute some of the more formational skills involved in learning
With
to this
that,
craft that I really, it was one of the first things that I actually mastered
that
in
is
my own little way.
awesome. I love it. And when you're young, especially in middle school, you're in sixth, seventh, eighth grade, you're 12, you're 13, you're 14 years old, your brain is forming and codifying these habits, right? You're learning, and you were learning how to learn, and your brain was creating those patterns as you were going through those crucial adolescent phases where it doesn't solidify, but it starts to harden, it starts to wire, your brain starts to get connected in a way that shapes a pattern that, as you said, now has lasted and is persistent throughout, since that point on through your life. And as you start recognizing that you're very present in a moment of learning, and that's the habit that you formed, and that will only get stronger the more you do it and the more years you have, right? The habits get stronger the more you do them. I was talking to last episode. I said, if you did not know anything about, let's say, the trombone, I guarantee, and I don't play the trombone. Really respect the people who do. But if I started to play the trombone for 15 minutes and 30 minutes and 45 minutes, then an hour every single day, I guarantee you next year I'll be better at the trombone than I am now, right? Just guaranteed, because you just practice it. Um, so I think that that's a wonderful model that you've learned and that you can apply. And my hunch is that it's I don't know if it has, but maybe I'll ask you: has learning and being present now almost gotten to the point of being a second nature and automatic for you?
Of course, it's
Hmm.
it's the only way that I have. Well, okay, so I think of it as like a snowball, and maybe when I was learning the trombone, it was the size of a head on our kind of metaphorical snowman, right?
Hmm.
And that snowball is representing my ability to learn. And the more I learn things, and I think I have just about every hobby you could think of, the more I pick things up and learn those early stages, and then a select few of them, I progress into the more advanced ones. The snowball grows, and now the snowball is just my life.
Right. I love that.
I'm now head first in the snowball, and maybe you see my shoes at the bottom. Um,
Yeah, I love that idea of letting letting life become bigger, right? And not being afraid of letting your life become bigger, right? And moving it forward in a way where you're, especially in states of awe in New York City, it allows you to absorb so much more, right? There's so much more stimuli. There's so much more uh, creativity. There's so many more people with so many different ideas, and everyone's kind of moving along. And as you start thinking about, okay, how do I make my life not small, but how do I focus on me and learning what I know and learning what I can do? I think I think you have the right mentality. And I guess as you start moving into your young adult and your manhood, um, is it different now than you thought it would be? Or are you looking at, like, is the man you're becoming now someone that you thought you would become when you were younger?
Interesting question. I won't say that I had much of a man outlined
Ah,
as maybe that reality would require. I will say that I couldn't fathom the life that I have now, even 3 years ago.
wow.
I couldn't even think about the opportunities I've been given, about the not given, earned, about the experiences that I've had, and about the progress that I've made towards who knows what. But just I measure progress in just life experience
Hmm.
and I guess learning as well, learning new skills, but also learning myself and the lessons that come with failures and triumphs and relationships and heartbreak. Like I couldn't fathom where I am now, even 3 years ago. And I hope that life continues to unfold like that because that's how I measure progress. And I have tangible goals, more like intense, as we spoke about earlier. And I feel as if I am approaching every day or living by those intentions every day. And I'm grateful for that. And it is drawing me further and further away from the person I was yesterday and 3 years ago. And there's a concept of becoming better, 1% better every day. And
Hmm.
in a year, you'll be unrecognizable. I truly think I'm becoming 1% better. And it's something that I'm living by and developing myself. And I'm not in a rush, but I'm also definitely not letting the grass grow. And so I am different from who I was. I wouldn't say that I'm the man that I thought I would be, but I didn't really think of who I would become that deeply. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm I'm very much be where your feet are and keep marching.
We'll be right back. I like that, and I think that the 1% better every day is a, like you said earlier, it's a very consistent and intentional mantra. I have been recently reading some of the Stoic philosophers that talk about that, right? They talk about the idea of being the agent of your own rescue, the idea that you can, if you think about how you think about things, you will start thinking better, right? You will start being more intentional about your thoughts. And if you can begin that in your early young adulthood, in your early 20s, and keep building that on, I think that that's going to bode well for your next steps. And I guess a question that I would have then is, if you're not recognizable now to the person you were 3 years ago, and nothing hard and fast, but is there a person that you want to become, so that if, for some reason went back to you down the street and you saw yourself 10 years older from where you are now, is that person in your mind? Do you have a vision of who that man is?
Vaguely, I I don't have any I don't have any qualifications for that
Mm-hmm.
man. I don't have a he's going to be worth $100 million, and if he's not, I'm gonna ignore him. It's
mm,
not that kind of thing, and I'm sure I hope it's not for many people. I want to be empathetic to the older me. Um,
mm-hmm.
he's he has maintained a sense of exploration and or a desire to explore and experience and discover things in his life, and that hopefully has led to fulfillment both in his relationships and in his career and in how he carries himself physically and mentally, because and I think those are one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
um and so yeah, I think he's maintained his guiding principles of always be willing to say yes to something and explore what the world has to offer. And hopefully, all good things have come from this. And maybe he has a family at this point, um, and he's able to model that for his children and
Sure.
to allow them to grow up and kind of trampoline them into greatness, right?
Right. Right. No, you
Whatever
always
that
want.
may
Yeah,
be.
no, I love that. You always want the next gen to, see, be as good as you can be, so they can be the best of us all. Right. That's what you hope. Now, have you always been curious, William? You sound like a curious individual who enjoys the exploration and the unknown.
I think absolutely. It started growing up in the woods, and it's only changed. It hasn't, I have not been stifled in any way,
Hmm.
besides maybe from the public school system. Um, but I've managed to maintain my curiosity and ability to I think that the most important part about curiosity, or maybe it's just the driver for it, is that I'm able to see things and ask myself, what they mean in the context of my own life, and that makes me unbelievably curious, and it
Yeah.
keeps me coming back for more because I'm able to quickly put myself in someone else's shoes. Maybe it's empathy, maybe it's something else, um, and and understand what I'm seeing in the context of who I am, and it always inspires me and leads me to awe, both in the people that I'm meeting and the random adventures that I go on in this beautiful city
Right, I would
and
think.
otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, there's the different kinds of woods, right? There's the woods of Maine, then there's the urban woods of New York City, where there's vast places to explore. And I think that I, I get theory I can't prove. I think that having a curious mind helps you live longer, helps you get older, it helps you build community. I think that there's a recent study that came out about that's been pretty clear. They talked about the happy, healthy elder folks, the super agers, and they said that the beyond whatever blue ocean or blue zone diet they
Yeah.
eat, it's actually community. It's the people. It's the people around them. And so New York City is a city of millions. How are you now building your community in the city?
Actually hinted at this earlier when you asked me about male loneliness and things like that. And I said I think communities or relationships are going to be the support system, I believe I said, is
Right.
what is going to be the key to all of this. And I'm going to first reiterate on how important that amazing thing is, a support system, and the ability to create one out of nothing is probably my most incredible skill that I possess. And not
Hmm.
out of nothing, but being able to come here and in a time of life where I think a lot of men lose their friendships from college or from growing from high school, or when they start entering into full-time jobs, and or maybe you have had one before, but for the people who have taken the path that I took, where now after college I'm expected to get a full-time job and start
Mm-hmm.
working 10, 11, 12 hours a day, where most people start to lose their relationships. I've been able to strengthen and create even new ones.
Great.
Um, it's a superpower of mine. So the importance, one, of having a support system that you can go to about things. It's an obvious one where if you have one, you it's the most important thing you have in your life. At least,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm inferring, but that's what I believe and what the individuals around me believe about themselves. It's one, the most important thing you possess, and two, it's the most important skill that I have, which is to be vulnerable, is to include others in quality time that you want to have for yourself. That is kind of my key,
Yeah.
is that I want to do something. I'm going to invite whoever I think may enjoy it the most based on the relationships that I've had with them, or maybe if it's a new relationship and I don't know what they like, I'm going to invite whoever might be interested. And
Excellent.
and if I am enjoying that experience, I'm going to be my most authentic self. I'm enjoying that experience because I have chosen it as something that I would like to do anyway. And forming those relationships is just a byproduct of being myself, doing something that I really enjoy, and including others in that experience, which makes it more meaningful to me, probably to them, hopefully, and builds this relationship around shared memories and experiences.
Yeah, I can tell you as someone who's just older than you that I really applaud that in you. I think that out of all the skills that you've learned, if you've learned that that's your superpower, that's actually one of the most important ones that will keep you happy and healthy for your whole life, and it will keep you more successful for your whole life. The older that I get, the more it's um, been shown to me that building a community of is act building a community and making community is the most important work that we can do, and it's the most probably the most valuable, and for me in particular, the most fulfilling. So just a quick story that you weren't aware of. I've built with other men a community of men. We've got about 20 guys. We have been together for about 15 years. We run every Friday. We do exercises on Wednesday, but throughout the 15 years, we've seen divorces, we've seen marriages, we've seen parents die, we've seen children grow up and go to college, we've seen grandchildren get born, and we've been together as men, just moving along. And it's our beloved Earthlings, and it's been one of the most important parts of my adulthood. And I've got another group that we swim with, so it's kind of like the swimming pod and the earth. But essentially, what it
Hmm.
is, it's community that you build. So if you're learning that now, building community around yourself in different cohorts and a group of people that you can be with and connect with, that is A, it's admirable that you're doing that at an early age, but B, I can tell you from experience, it's the most valuable thing you can do.
Yeah. Something I think about as you're speaking about your communities that you've built is it's very hard in New York, or maybe it's just me, I don't know, to to extract or to kind of annex my ambitions from community. And I have really core friends. I have fantastic friends where I would never expect anything from them other than the presence that they bring when they're
And you've got
around
a
me.
friend since kindergarten, which is a lifelong friendship. It's brilliant and beautiful and rare.
Absolutely. And I have powerful friendships with a, one of my best friends is somebody I've known for less than a year.
Mm-hmm.
And those are my core friends. But as I try and build community around my hobbies and my passions, I've over the past few years I've built a skill set into becoming a professional DJ
Excellent.
where over the last year I've worked incredibly hard networking and promoting myself and learning all of these skills that are going to make me unbelievably successful in my life, which are marketing of myself and
Mm-hmm.
of my craft and knowing my worth and things like that. I really enjoy the way that I like to build community is through dance, is through
Mm-hmm.
movement to a collective rhythm. And I
Nice.
know that the reason why it's meaningful, everyone's the stereotype nowadays is you're a DJ, well, you must be shallow and suck, right? Because you're just in search of in search of admiration from your peers, right? You're looking for admiration and without much substance. But for me, it's I've had these experiences, whether it's with three friends or 10, where you really gel into one person, it feels like,
Mm-hmm.
through dance and through rhythm and through the energy that you're putting out. It's so pure, where everyone has taken down the barriers that you put up every day to conserve energy in an environment like New York City or an environment like college where
Mm-hmm.
there are so many demands for your energy around you. Music has the unique ability to destroy those barriers and allow people to connect in a way that is unable or that you're unable to replicate, at least from my experience, in anything else. And that's why I
I
enjoy
love it.
DJing. That's why I pursue it like
Well, also too,
It's
you build community, right? You build a community
yeah.
in the DJ and the dance environment. So my youngest daughter, she's also 24. She loves to go to festivals and EDM shows. And I didn't know much about it, so I started to listen to some of the songs and the rhythms that she played, and I started to really enjoy it. And what was interesting was she said the similar idea to yours, William, where when she's dancing in a festival, she's incredibly connected to everyone there, and everyone is connected to one another. It's an incredibly beautiful vibration. There's a sonic vibration to it. There's a human connection. There's a free flow of
Hmm.
energy. There's like you said, the melting away of barriers. And what she was interesting too, she said, that a lot of the rhythms for these EDM song actually mimic a heartbeat rhythm, and that actually is one of these, and the frequencies of the sound, right? The sound frequencies are these ones that really penetrate and strike different nerve endings and strike different areas of the brain that are harmonically relaxing or harmonically mood
Hmm.
altering. And so there's a lot of validity to what you just said in terms of this scene, this music this dance scene, this EDM music is transportative in a way for the people who experience it.
Absolutely. I'm familiar with a recent study that mentions the play between music, electronic music, more specifically house music, in between 120 and 130 beats per minute, synchronizing with some sort of brain activity that
Mm-hmm.
reduces cortisol and lowers, which is the stress hormone, and improves quality of life, lowers stress, and is expected to increase longevity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I mean it's being supported empirically, but there is no substitute for feeling it. It just in your own life. Um, and it's a fantastic way to build community. I think it's been more effective building the community around music, not necessarily in music, which is the point that I was bringing up earlier, where
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to find a way to connect with people within the industry instead of people like using it as a way to connect with my best of friends in my day-to-day life. Like
Sure.
my goal is to build a community in the thing that I'm really passionate about. And it's hard because it being something that or it's an art form, and an art form is very entrepreneurial, and you rely on yourself and your network and your reputation and the connections you have. It's it's one of the most freeing experiences, but the industry is very guarded, where um, I don't know who I should share ideas with or music with, because
Mm-hmm.
if I want to pursue this full time at some point in my life, I'm going to need an income source, right?
Right.
And it's very exploitative, as music has always been. It's kind of a stereotype that the young artist gets this one hit wonder, gets signed by a music label, and then never makes another meaningful dime in their life because they're taking these royalties and things like that. It's that artists are easily taken advantage of because they're passionate and because they're doing it for the love of the game. Both my parents are artists. They they've talked about similar experiences, and so I don't know when to give and open up, which is the platform that I've built my life on. Is
Right.
I try to be inclusionary and to open up and be vulnerable and excited about things. And so the barrier here, and I guess this is just me putting it out into the world and seeing if people have an answer for it, or you have an answer for it. Like I'm having a I guess dissonance where I want one thing to be real. I sense that another thing is the reality, and I'm now having to choose which one to pursue. Do I
or
accept
to
that?
or to believe in. I think that
Yeah.
you're at a really right place to ask these really good questions, and it's an impossible answer for anyone else, except for your lived experience, right? As an artist,
Hmm.
do you dive in and lean in to the passion, with all the risks that that entails, or do you hedge your bets a bit and then don't put your full mind, body, spirit into it and divide it while building a career? Not knowing that, if it doesn't pursue the way you want, could you have made it if you put your 100% effort in it? These are all great questions. These are all unanswerable questions.
Hmm.
And I think that, as the pragmatist in you would say, well, I've got a career that I'm focused on. This is great. This is driving. This is thriving, and I can do this for love, maybe not for livelihood. Um,
Hmm.
and then the other part of it is, well, is that a cop out, right? Am I not kind of quote unquote throwing caution to the wind and leaning in and diving in? I think that
Hmm.
there's no advice that anyone can give you, which is a good thing. I think that the good news about you, William, is that I think that you have a blend of sensibility and optimism.
I
Um,
appreciate. I think that
right,
I resonate with that.
right, and that I think you also have a a passion for building a whole life for yourself, right? There are plenty of artists who dedicate their whole life to their art and become total douchebags and don't have a whole life.
Hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see. I'm curious about your journey as you move along, and you are asking the right questions. I think that you know uh, as start learning more about the reality of the world, will that temper some of your vision of what it could be, temper some of the optimism? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you'll just take it as reality.
I
What I
may
can't,
I may want to I do want to jump in here for a moment.
yeah.
So what I've discovered to attempt to answer my own question
Hmm.
is, and maybe this can help somebody else who's also young or somebody who's old and hasn't understood this yet, eh, and maybe is jaded and doesn't know why. I think that really defining what success will mean for me will be the most important and powerful guidance that I could ever receive. For example, I've understood that I have far more fun and it come far closer to that driving principle or guiding principle for why I want to play music for people at all. I find that it's far more core to my values in a room of 10 than a stage before 500,
Mm,
where success for me may just be once every 6 months, I happen to find myself in a room with the right people at the right time. And as long as I'm consciously pursuing or I have the intent to find myself in that room, it will continue to happen. And I will continue to have these meaningful, life-changing experiences or life-affirming experiences where I provide to maybe a group of 10
hmm
the the night that changes their life and shows them what true connection can be to those around them. Like my life was changed so many years ago, the first time that I had that experience. And I've given it to people before, and I will again
Hmm.
someday, and maybe that's enough.
Maybe that
Um,
is. I think that's beautiful, William, because it's like for the story that you just said, it's like you received this gift, like you received this Prometheus flame and an experience from someone that was given to you, right, as an act of joy and love. And now you have the opportunity to do that act of joy and love for someone else, right, to carry
mhm.
to literally pass that torch down. And that might be the way you go, and I think that that would be a beautiful thing. And you touched on kind of this idea of what success looks like. um, I think that, I guess I'll ask you this final question. In terms of what success is, A, has that changed for you in the course of your short life? And then B, what do you see kind of quote unquote success to be?
It absolutely has changed. So it's changed from at first, I never want to worry about money or whatever, any sort of constraint on my desires. I want to be like the song goes, I want to be I think, billionaire, millionaire, I forget how it goes, but defining it very much tangibly like that, it evolved into my purpose becoming having a successful family. That's
Mm-hmm.
success.
Mm-hmm.
It, I think that it's drawing itself back further and further to who I am every year as I discover who I am, right?
Mm.
I know I used who I am twice in a row, but
It's fine.
as I discover the man that I am and that I want to be, and I am realizing how much more success is in and around me every day. Where if I just do something productive, or I leave the house to put myself in an opportunity or in a situation where I can potentially progress my life or become better or learn something, that is success.
Mm.
Not in 15 years, I want to have the start of a successful family, or by the time I'm 70, I want to be worth $1 billion. Like those are nice ideas, goals, some people would even call them, but it's not success. Success is I find myself in that room where everybody's dancing and connected, and I've accomplished the thing that I want to be remembered for, which is that I or that I made in it for an amazing time, or I changed your life in a positive way. Like
Sure.
those are the things that you're going to be remembered by, and that's success. The success is being the person who will always leave the house on a Sunday when they don't want to, or after work when you're tired, and potentially stumbling on a life-changing experience, or just getting some steps in and experiencing awe in the world, which lowers your cortisol as well and is one of the number one contributors to perceived happiness. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's those little successes that I've come to appreciate, even in over the last month or so, that have drawn me further towards who I actually am as a person and away from that late stage capitalist mindset that success is how much you have in your bank account,
Wonderful.
where you're kind of putting the cart before the horse, and the money or whatever you originally thought success was will come once you have find a more tangible and consistently strived for success in my, I'm going to say your, but in your life.
Mm-hmm.
um Once you've come closer to what that is, you're going to start leading a life of consequence, and you're going to be able to reach these goals that you could never have even imagined 3 years prior, right? And I
Yeah.
think that I'm leading the life that I'm proud of and experiencing success every day. And my mom would be very happy to know that I I'm proud of myself,
Hmm.
and I think that I'm going to be wonderfully successful in everyday life, but also maybe in the ways that I thought of success being earlier in my life as well, finding financial freedom and having a successful family,
Hmm.
prosperous family in all ways that can be measured and not measured. So, success, cart before the horse in the traditional sense where everyone thinks money is the root of happiness, and whereas you need to be the horse pulling the money along, and you need to be very in touch with who you are and what success
Yeah.
means in your day-to-day life.
I love it. I think that's a wonderful way to wrap it up. That's an excellent vision as a young adult thinking about success in the everyday moment, right? Every single day you have an opportunity to be successful. That's terrific. So, one final question for you, William. Who is someone that you know that I don't know that I should meet?
It's actually the hardest question 'cause it's not about me. um hmm, hmm. I have two friends who were teammates of mine in college. One of them is rowing across the Atlantic next year or in
Wow.
December, and the other one is in his pursuit of becoming an Olympic rower
Wow.
currently. And they're both completely unique individuals. They were roommates in college. They've gone on their own paths, still within the sport of rowing, but I find them to be each uniquely fascinating. The one who's rowing across the Atlantic, we he was there when I first experienced connection through dance,
Hmm.
through rhythm, that first euphoric moment. And the other, I think, has a similar understanding of being practical yet optimistic as myself, and he's pursuing very tangible and very um high lofty goals, right,
Yeah.
that are more tangible than definitely more tangible than my own, and are wildly impressive. So
Yeah.
those two gentlemen are, I think, some of my most interesting friends and core to how I have spoken about my own life
That's
over
great. I'd
this
love to
last
meet
hour or
them one
so.
day. Wonderful. I'd love that. Well, William, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this on the rooftop in New York City, broadcasting live. And anyway, I think this has been terrific, and I really appreciate you spending the time with us.
It's an honor and a privilege. I hope somebody identified with anything that I've said, and if they have any answers to my profound questions that have no answers, they'll be able to reach out to me at some point, and
Wonderful.
maybe I'll build community from this, which is a happy goal or a happy outcome of anything that you do.
Absolutely. All right, William. Well, thank you so much. You have a great evening.
You as well, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Wow, what a fantastic conversation with William. What an impressive young man. 24 years old, starting off his life. Well, not starting off his life. His life is already started and he is moving it forward. He's already had a life before, but his adulthood is ahead of him. Just getting started. But he's already learning how he wants to live. That's what I found most impressive about him. It's not just living through life, but how I want to live, what I want to pay attention to, what I'm going to think about, how I'm going to be intentional in my day-to-day. And I love his idea of being open to awe, right? Being open to new experiences, appreciating the new experiences in the moment, and being present. So, what did we learn from William? I think we learned that success can be defined in a lot of ways. You can have a successful day, you can have a successful life if you have the intention of a day and you're present in a moment to be present so you can learn. Isn't that successful? Isn't that being successful when you're learning something new? And you put yourself in an opportunity to learn something new every day, all the time? Anyway, that's what I think we can learn from him. And he's 24 and he's given us lessons. But isn't that the way of things? You pass on, you give, you get. You take that torch from someone else who's given it to you with joy and love, and you give it to somebody else. That's what it's all about. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this conversation. I hope you join the conversation. Visit menfolkjourneys.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you about the things you're learning every day. Thank you so much for listening. Word bid flarid.